Tonight, Tamale Central MP Inusa Fuseni fails to honor CID invitation over comments asking NDC flag bearer John Mahama to form a parallel government. The CID is tonight considering legal options to compel the MP to appear before them.
What we need to know that the police has powers, constitutional powers that it works with. And so I go back to say that we do have options. Would go through those options and choose one that is appropriate for us.
Well, we hear from the MP's lawyers tonight on Top Story.
This is Top Story with Evans Mensah.
And Top Story is always brought to you by Gassim Cement, the nation builder, and also by Belacqua Mineral Water. Now, the Tamale Central MP, Inusa Fuseni, today failed to honor an invitation from the Police Criminal Investigations Department to answer questions on some comments he made asking the NDC flag bearer, John Mahama, to form a parallel government following his disputed defeat in the December 7 presidential elections. The CID had written to Mr. Fuseni asking him to appear before them for questioning at 10 a.m. After hours of waiting, there was no show. My colleague Parker Wilson spent the whole day at the CID HQ and joins me in the studio one more now. Parker, what happened?
Right, so Evans, I got there this morning around 9:30. Now, just before I entered the compound, I spotted about 20 armed policemen right in front of the CID headquarters with their water cannon and also FPU and other top security officials there. So I asked permission, I went inside, and I spoke to the PRO, the SP Julian Obin, as to whether Mr. Fuseni was going to honor the invitation. In fact, she responded in the affirmative. Now, just before I even entered, I called the Member of Parliament himself, and then at the time he told me he was on TV and that he was going to call back around 10. Indeed, around 10, he called and indicated to me that, yes, he's ready and that he will be at the CID headquarters. So I'm quite hopeful. And the CID spokesperson was also hopeful because we had received the information that he was going to come. Around midday, when we spoke on radio and on TV, the MP hadn't reported yet. So there I asked the spokesperson for the CID as to why the man has delayed, knowing very well that they gave him 10 o'clock. Now, she told me at the time that, well, they haven't received any official communication from the NP nor his legal team, and that they are still waiting because it was just around 12. Evans, we stayed there till like somewhere 2:30, and I realized that the armed policemen who were stationed in front of the CID headquarters had been called to go back to the compound.
And appeared they have been put there because we're anticipating that, he may not come alone, but NDC supporters might also throng the place.
And you recall that yesterday some leadership of the party were asking the supporters to accompany the NP if he's going to the CID headquarters. So they were there in anticipation that indeed some supporters were going to come with him at the CID
Was
headquarters.
it heavy presence of
Yes,
police
about
protection?
20 to 30 armed police officers.
With the water cannon?
Water cannon as well, with their FPU, and we're patrolling, also controlling the traffic around the area, and had mounted barricades just in front of the CID headquarters. So around 2:30, I realized that they were leaving. In fact, they had called them in. So I checked again with the PRO as to what's happening. Now she tells me that, well, they haven't still heard from the NP. They don't know why he hasn't been there. No communication from him, nor from his legal team. So I quickly called the NP myself. And then at the time, he told me that he was in a meeting with his lawyers. So I asked him, but when we spoke in the morning, he had assured that you were going to come. What then happened? The answer he gave me was that his lawyers were advising him as to whether to come or not. And this was just around 2:33. So I went to engage the PRO, and then she said that from the look of things, they are going to close around 4 p.m. and I don't think that the NP was going to show up. And that if it doesn't show up, and I confirmed just before I came on air that the MP didn't show up, they are considering legal options to compel him appear before them in subsequent days.
And this is Madam Julian Obeng.
I think that earlier on we spoke, and I did mention that we're still waiting for the Honourable Member of Parliament for Tamale Central to join us here for some kind of questioning. As at the time I'm speaking to you now, he still has not reported. My boss, Director General CID, Isaac Kaniabwa, Commissioner, makes me understand that we still make room for any eventuality that probably might have happened on his part, and so we are still expecting to see him. But if up until the time of closing, our official time for closing, which is 4 o'clock, he's still not around, my understanding again is that we would have a team meet and then discuss the options that is available to us, and then move on to the second part, or the option that we'll choose from the many options that's available to the CID for cases like this.
What are some of the options available to the CID?
There are a lot of options available to us. We do have a legal team that would advise on which option to choose, but I shouldn't at this moment, when I haven't been officially told that this is the option that we are going to take, to say anything. I can only say that we do have options.
So like what?
We do have options. We do have options, and we do have options. It could be anything apart from the invitation extended to him, and I'm very sure that we would choose one that would suit us.
He hasn't communicated to your office that he's not coming.
As at the time I'm speaking to you, there hasn't been any communication whatsoever.
Have you contacted his lawyers?
We extended an invitation to him through the Speaker of Parliament to report here at 10 o'clock. And so I do not think that it would have to, once we're expecting him, call his lawyers to say A or to say B. The expectation is that he honors the invitation. And like I said earlier, if up until the time of closing, he has still not reported, or he's still not seen on the compound to report to the appropriate office, the CID has options. The Ghana Police Service has options, and it would use which of the options is suitable for them.
But for me, in situations like this, what happens when a suspect or you invite somebody to come to your office and the person doesn't show up? In situations like this, what happens? In
situations like this, this we treat every case as one, because of the merits or the demerits that the case has. And so what we need to know that the police has powers, constitutional powers, that it works with. And so I go back to say that we do have options. We'll go through those options and choose one that is appropriate for us.
Well, Parker Wilson is still with me here. So that's Julian Obeng there explaining the circumstances surrounding which, of course, he was invited. We know it's based on some Pan-African television interview he had granted, suggesting, in fact, asking that John Mahama form a parallel government in the wake of his dispute
and
over the election, declare himself president and run a parallel government there. So, of course, he didn't show. The police, obviously, as you said, had retreated. We don't know yet when whether he will or will not in the future.
Yeah, for now we don't know.
Okay.
But as he mentioned to me that he was seeking advice from his lawyers, and just before we came on, I was trying to reach him. His phone has been off, and so we don't have him.
Okay,
yet.
Thankfully we can speak to Ediju Tamaklo. He's a member of his legal team. Mr. Tamaklo, thank you for your time here on Top Story.
Good evening.
Grateful that we could join us. So what happened today? We know that he was invited. He did not show, as the CID had confirmed. Do you know what happened?
Okay. So once again, good evening. With his instructions, and as you are aware, my senior, the Honorable Minister of State, is a law-abiding citizen of this republic, a member of parliament as such. Now, having received the invitation, today I personally hand-delivered a letter to the name officer we're supposed to see. That's the director of operations of the CID. And the letter was so delivered. I personally delivered the letter, met him in his office. We had just a brief discussion for me to inform him about the letter. Now, what happened was he indicated to me that in view of the letter that we have presented, we would have to meet his superior. And from there, the next step will be taken. That is what happened.
So this letter that you submitted, the contents of it was to communicate your inability to appear, to honor the invitation?
Well, the contents of it is for the Ghana police. I do not have instructions to share the details with you. But like I indicated, a letter was delivered to the director of operations. I personally did that. And the indication that I got from the director is that he will speak to his superior and discuss the content of the letter. I don't think it would be appropriate that before they would even do a discussion on the content of the letter, I should be putting it on air. So let me defer to whatever meeting they would have. With the courtesy that we have extended to them, I'm confident that once a decision is taken from their end, they will communicate to us as lawyers so we can take it up from there.
Well, Mr. Fuseni subsequently honored the invitation?
Like I indicated to you, let's take this step by step. There is a letter with the CID. Once they respond to us, and if they are mandated, they are minded to discuss the content with the public. They will do that. But for now, I want to treat that mutual respect between us lawyers and the police and defer to them as and when they respond to our letter. We'll take it out from there.
But I wonder, on the substantive matter, though, of what he's alleged to have said, it appears the CID believes it's worth investigating at least, for which reason they've called to speak to him. What's your view as a lawyer on this?
You have had the benefit of hearing what he said. Obviously, because it's an invitation, if it's an arrest, then the constitutional requirement will be that the arresting officer needs to inform the person he's still arresting the reason for the arrest. But because it's an invitation, they only indicated that he should just come relative to a comment he's purported to have made on Pan-African TV. You know, the Honorable Bendu Sakuteni clearly knows the bounds of the requirements of law related to speech. And is such a person that you cannot cow relative to how he decides to express himself. In this circumstance, he had expressed himself within the confines of the laws of Ghana. Until the police indicate to us if a crime had been committed and what the nature of that crime, I do not want to operate on the basis of a faulty assumption to assume that there is a crime and that it is even worth investigating.
How is Mr. Fuseni, though?
He has always been in high spirits, a very courageous lawmaker without mom.
Well, thank you very much. That's a member of the Mr. Husseini's legal team there on what happened today when the CID invited him to appear before them. You want to stay with us because there's more on this when it comes to the related matters of the protests that we've seen across the country. With the NDC challenging some of the results on Newsnight. We'll be telling you the story of the whether or not the parliamentary results have been gazetted. There's a statement from the Electoral Commission with implications for the NDC's case, both in Hohoi and also in Techiman South. Shortly, details of that shortly. But on the matter of the protests, and remember that this Yunus Husseini matter relates to just that. He was expressing his view on the matter and suggesting other alternatives that the party should take in their protest against the results. Today, the National Commission for Civic Education is adding its voice to calls for peace. The commission, in a communique, expresses a grave concern over the recurring demonstrations across the country among supporters of the NDC. The NCC is also worried that some of the protests have turned violent amidst clashes with the security agencies. It is therefore asking or aggrieved political parties to desist in engaging in acts that heighten tension and threaten the peace and stability of the country and use lawful means to seek redress. My colleague Ernest Menu joins me in the studio with more on this. The communique touches on various issues. Let's start with the 2020 elections. What's the NCC's verdict on it?
Well, the NCC says that it notes that the voting process of the just ended presidential and parliamentary elections were largely peaceful, except for isolated incidents of violence in some parts of the country and polling stations. And it continues to say that the NCC, however, expresses grave concern on the recurring demonstrations across the country by the opposition, characterized by violent clashes between the security agencies and, of course, some party supporters.
Okay. They also touched on the next parliament.
Yes, and that is on a topic called building nation cohesion and consensus. And the opening paragraph of that, topic touches on this. It says the equal representation of the two dominant parties in our parliament demands consensus building for our national development. The NCCE wishes to re-echo the aspirations of Ghanaians as expressed in our elections, which include the fact that no single political party has absolute support from the electorate. Now more than ever, there's the need for consensus building on key national development issues. The Commission reiterates and goes on to make four major points on other issues of national building and cohesion.
Well, I want to bring in right now the chairperson of the commission, Josephine Nkrumah, joins us on the telephone line. Right, Madam Nkrumah, thank you for your time here on Top Story, and Merry Christmas to you.
Christmas, Evan. Happy New Year to you and to our listeners.
Great. In your statement, you raised concern about the continuing protest. The NDC insists, of course, that is their constitutional right, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Can you please repeat that?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'll just mentioning the NDC's position about the continuing demonstrations, which you touched on. You raised concerns with it. The NDC says that is their constitutional right, and there can't be anything wrong with that.
Actually, we raised concerns on the, they are right. We're only raising concerns on any act that anybody does that heightens tension and threatens our peace. So to that extent, let me qualify that and say it is an admonition to all political actors in this unfolding event. In the last few weeks, things have been a little fluid, and so from 1 minute to the next, something is happening or something is not happening. But what we as the commission are saying is that whatever rights anyone exercises, we should all ensure that it doesn't threaten the peace and stability of our country. We've fought hard for this democracy, and we must fight even harder to preserve it.
But I wonder what their stakeholders in this. And yesterday, the EC responded to the petition that they had received from the minority on the issues that, of course, they have, and says that, well, they're going to look into this. Some have said a lot also goes to the posture of, I guess, the commission and other stakeholders, the police, etc., in trying to resolve this. I mean, the Peace Council obviously is also talking about peace. At some point, I guess the conscious of more moral society needs to sometimes engage in these matters. I wonder what NCCE. I know you work in coalition sometimes with some civil society groups. Is there an approach at all to the leadership of the aggrieved parties to try and explore other ways of sitting to dialogue on these matters, to mediate?
Therefore, I don't think I'm in a position to comment, except to say that if there's an avenue for dialogue, of course, all the parties involved must be prepared to go down that path and seek to dialogue and find some consensus and some reasonable conclusion to these matters. The bottom line is that we are seeking the peace, we are seeking to maintain the peace in this country, and therefore, whatever it takes, we must all be mindful that the main objective is to ensure that our peace is maintained, our democracy thrives, and we continue to hold on to that image as one of the most peaceful countries south of the Sahara in the African continent.
Speaking about that, there's been, of course, we witnessed the Techiman South violence that led to the death of at least a couple of people. The police have said they're investigating. You talked about the conduct of the polls and the atmosphere of peace and security. What does the Commission want to see when it comes to these areas where we've seen lives lost in the wake of the elections?
Well, I don't think, no matter how keenly contested elections are, I honestly don't think that any life is worth losing over elections. Elections is nothing more than all of us coming together to determine who governs us for a period of time. And to that extent, it's really sad that in our 2020 elections, we saw a few deaths, unfortunately, of some persons in relation to the matter of elections. I think we've come so far in our democracy, we've matured, and we should be seeing less of this and not more of it. And so it's really regrettable that this is what happened.
I mean, there have been many suggestions as to how do you approach these investigations. Is it a parliamentary probe, a commission, or should the police itself be allowed to look into these matters?
I think that where there are different parties involved in this, and I know that I think the Ghana Police Service itself may have been accused of as being, the persons who meted out certain actions on some supporters. And so to that extent, I think we should begin to have that confidence in our state institutions, allow the police service to carry out a probe. And they should do so objectively with the intention of finding out what really went on and ensuring that kind of probe lends credence and credibility to the state, that state institution, and allows to build confidence in that institution.
Well, thank you very much. That's the chairperson of the NCCE. If you join us on Newsnight, the EC has tonight confirmed it has indeed gazetted the parliamentary results and has also dismissed those widely circulated documents you found on social media today, probably suggesting that those documents were indeed the gazetted parliamentary results. Some of them had errors in it. The EC has a statement now tonight saying that is not authentic, but they have indeed published it, and you can get an authentic copy if you go to the Assembly Press. That has indeed some implications for the NDC and its case in a few of the constituencies, two in particular, Hohoe and Tichiman South. Details of that and implications next here on Newsnight in a few minutes. We'll also tonight be hearing from the majority leader, who has been revealing a few things about his own ambitions in the next parliament. He says he's been drained. He's been left drained by his desire and years of leadership in parliament, and wants a fully fledged ministerial position in the next government. Details of that here on Newsnight in a few seconds. Stay with us.
55, 78, 58, 70. Hey, Charlie